So today we are going to discuss about the how to build your career in the full stack development domain. Okay, and what are the various prospects there in the full stack development domain? Okay, and also what are the various skill sets that you need to start learning so that you can get your hands dirty on the full stack development and build websites and all those stuff. So I'm gonna quickly share my screen. So the first thing, before we, jump into the, the details of the full stack development thing, let us also, have a little bit of brief about what are the various other software development domains, because we might have, various members among us, various attendees among us who are not from, let's say, not from the software development domain or not even from the IT domain. Okay, and let's say you want to switch your career towards IT, and you want to start your career in anything in IT and something like that. Okay, so before you move on, you need to know some little bit basics or little bit idea about what are these various domains are. So as you can see in the screen, the first being the full stack development, which we can say as the core of any application. So we have various applications around in the market. Let's say a full stack, let's say a website, or let's say any software or anything. Okay, and so anything, any kind of analysis that you would be doing, any kind of logic making thing that you would be doing. So you will always be needing an end-to-end application, an application where you need to, you can interact with the data, you can interact with various other stuffs. So mentioning that, so yeah, full stack development is definitely the core of any application. Then comes the big data engineering, where you handle a lot of, let's say, millions and billions of data. So let's say the example of Uber, or let's say the example of Zomato, where they are handling millions and millions of customers. Okay, so now, how do you handle those kind of data, those big chunks of data? So there comes the big data engineering. So that domain is known as the big data engineering. Then comes the cloud computing, means let's say, like you are developing a website, or you developing an end-to-end application or a mobile application or anything. Okay, and you have developed and you can run it and you can see it in your own laptop or in your own system, but you want the public or people, elsewhere across the world to access that. Okay, so there comes the cloud computing domain, where you deploy your applications to various clouds, and you actually maintain and build the infrastructure over there in the cloud, like maintaining the servers, creating the space, server space, storage, and configuring all those stuff. So that comes under the cloud computing part. Then we have DevOps, we have blockchain development, and we have artificial intelligence and machine learning also. Like for example, let's say if you want to, if you build a AI model or an ML model, on top of like prehistoric data. Let's say you have a a lot of, like let's say thousands and 200 customers data, and you want to build a model, like you want to do some kind of a prediction on the basis of those prehistoric data. So that comes under the part of artificial intelligence and machine learning. We have this chatbots also. We have some kind of systems where you need to detect where there is a fire happening in any kind of industry or not, or let's say in any kind of like threats occurring or not. You want to detect through the camera and all. So there comes the artificial intelligence part. So all these domains that you have seen, everything like big data or cloud computing or DevOps or anything or AIML, every domain needs an application to interact with. Okay, so when you sell your product to your clients, to your customers, okay, they need a interface, right? So they need an interface to interact with various of various features. They also need to, let's say you want to predict, I mean, given the artificial intelligence and machine learning domain, you want to predict the future trends of a particular data set or something like that. So how would you do that? How would you let the customers do that? Of course the customers will not sit and code in their machines, right? They need an end-to-end application. So there comes the role of a full stack development. So then comes the points. So why should you make a full stack as a career? I mean, what are the reasons? Or, I mean, what are the prospects? So as I mentioned already, it forms the core of the application, okay, and then you get to do the end-to-end development. Means you get to build the front-end interface, which we call as the front-end part. Means let's say the like designing the buttons, creating the interface, like some kind of forms, some kind of tables or charts or any kind of analytics persona that you want to build in the website, or any in any application, in any software. So that becomes the front end. Then you also get to build the logic behind that, like how to fetch the data, how do get lots and lots of data, and then you process those data and show them in your application. So all these things, and also the cloud also comes into the picture when you have developed the entire application, and you have to configure the cloud, and you have to deploy the application to the cloud. So this end to end thing, so you get an end to end picture of the entire software development life cycle, while you work as a full stack engineer. So and definitely it's also an evergreen domain, because as I said, since it consists of the end-to-end development, so there is always a requirement in every company. Okay, in any company you go, there is always a demand for full stack engineers, because as I said, the end product, there should be an end product, or there should be an interface that they need to develop. So that's the reason it's always an evergreen domain. It never goes down, the full stack development career. And definitely, as it's also an evergreen domain, it's also an it also offers you high paid jobs, because full stack consists of both front end, back end, the database, the cloud configuration, and a lot of other stuffs. So one single engineer have multiple knowledge, okay, have multiple domains in their skill sets. That's why they are always offered a little bit of higher, they are always given a little bit of more preference than other development domains. And then now like why you should make full stack as a career. Now, so before going deep dive, so you need also to know, like what are the various full stack components. So as I mentioned, so there will be a front end part, there will be a back end part, and there will be a database. So front end means, let's say, the as I said, the user interface, or what we call in short as a UI. Okay, so the user interface, and then the back end. Let's say, let's say for example, there are some charts, or there is a table, or there is a map kind of an interface, and I want to populate some data. Okay, of course I cannot keep every customer data or everything inside within my website, right? So we need a database to persist the customer data and all. But how to interact with the database, there comes the picture of the backend. So the backend, in the backend we write the logic. It can be using any language like Python or Java or even Node.js, to to bring, or to process the data, or to do some little bit of kind of a manipulation or calculation with the data, and then show it to the front end. So we build each and every piece, and we finally deploy those into the cloud. So the four key components that you can see in full stack, in any full stack application, is basically the front end, the back end, the database, and of course the cloud. So now coming to the job market. Okay, so in the recent, as per the statistics, in the recent study, according to, as you can see, according to US Bureau of Labor Statistics, no, there's a 35% growth in demand, okay, of full stack developers over the time. So in the past 2 years, the growth in demand for the full stack developers has increased rapidly, around on an average of 35%. And so they have also mentioned in in their recent session, that the rapid pace of change in technology has made full stack developers an asset to any company. So definitely, yeah. So as I so this you know signifies the point that full stack jobs are always evergreen and are always in demand. So because they form the main assets, even if not the main asset, but one of the main assets to any company, any company which works in the software development piece and all. According to the LinkedIn study, LinkedIn recent report, full stack is considered to be the fourth among top emerging jobs. And then if you also consider the pay, wages and pay wise and all those stuff, so you get a salary of average salary of 7.5 LPA if you are having the experience within 2 to 4 years. And then if you're having an experience of 4 to 6 years, you get a 14.5 LPA on an average salary. Then 7 to 9, it even goes 22 or beyond 22. So it again depends on the company. It again depends on the sector that you are applying for. But yeah, so the jobs are always evergreen, and the payment, or the hikes, the appraisals, all those all are interconnected and interrelated to each other. So so let me give you some examples of the popular websites that are built that falls under the full stack development criteria. So as we all know, like we have this Netflix, which comes under the entertainment sector, like Netflix and Hotstar. So Netflix is a very popular app and popular website you all must be knowing about. Okay, we all have Netflix in our mobile phones, in our smartphones and all. And Netflix also offers a public facing website as well. So Netflix has been created, the front end of the Netflix has been created using React.js. Okay, so I'll come into the details of React.js in the subsequent slides. So basically it's a website again. Okay, and it offers you a series of movies or a series of TV series and all those stuff, drama or whatsoever genres. And so yeah, it is also so there is also a backend running. Okay, there is also the logic running in the background. Okay, so like for example, the like Python, they have written stuffs in Python, they have written stuffs in Java as well, to manipulate with the data. That then they're persisting all sorts of data in various kinds of databases. So they do not have only one database, they have multiple databases. Okay, so in a typical any typical website, or in any typical public facing application, or in any let's say if I also give you the example of this e-commerce, Amazon, okay, or Mintra, they do not normally generally have one database in in their architecture. They have multiple mix and matches of databases. Okay, so now to talk to those databases, to communicate through among the databases, we need a backend. Then we also need the front end for the interfaces, where the customers can log in and order some stuffs, add some stuffs to the cart and all. So all this is so all this forms the part of the full stack development. Then we have examples of Facebook, we have examples of LinkedIn. Okay, and then some Q&A forums websites like Coda. Like people use Coda to to ask any kind of a question related to any topic. Okay, and they also post any kind of content in there. So so Coda is one of those examples. So and there are many more. There are millions and millions of websites across the market that are available, and which are utilizing that entire full stack architecture in there. So now that like that now that we have discussed, like what are the various popular websites, and how full stack will help you boost up your career. Okay, and like what are the basic key components of a full stack development. So now there must be a question that is arising in your minds, like, okay, now I know all this kind of stuff, so how do I get started, where from I start from, right? So now, so the first and foremost thing that you need to learn, or you need to explore, is basically the front end languages and the frameworks. Okay, so the basics that you can see, the basics of any front end application or any full stack application, is the HTML. So because whenever we build any sort of website, okay, any sort of web application, the output is always an HTML application. So in order to know about the technical piece, you should always get started with the HTML. Like, what are the various key components of an HTML applications? Okay, what are the various tags? What are the various methods? that you use in an HTML application. And then comes the css. Css means css is basically used for styling of the HTML application. For example, if I want to apply any kind of background, let's say green background, let's say purple background, or if I have to manage the margins and the paddings, and if I have to bring in some sort of images or graphics, I don't know how do I style the entire website so that it looks quite appealing to the to my customers. So that part is handled using the css. And the css, the full form of css is cascaded style sheets. The full form of html is hypertext markup language. And then comes the javascript, where we normally write the logic. Let's say, uh, now I have built the static website and I need to fetch some data from the backend, or from the database. Okay, and how do I show those data? And let's say my data is coming in, let's say, millions. Okay, and I have to do some sort of calculation, some sort of do some kind of modulus operations and all, mathematical operations and all. So how do I do that? Where do I do that? So for that comes the javascript. So let me tell you guys, javascript is very, very, very much important language in full stack development. Okay, or in front end development. So wherever you go, whichever company you apply for, JavaScript is very much important, and it is asked thoroughly in any of the interviews. Okay, so JavaScript, you need to ensure that you have complete full grasp on the JavaScript. And then nowadays, so a new format of JavaScript has also come, like the ECMAScript, the ES5, ES6, ES7. Okay, so over and all, JavaScript is a very important language. And let me also give you this information as well. A lot of people confuse JavaScript with Java, but both are completely different. Although the Java word is there in JavaScript as well, but both are completely different languages. So Java is a different language, and JavaScript again is a different language. There is no interconnection between JavaScript and Java. Although JavaScript also follows the concept of OOPS, that is object oriented programming, same as Java. But yeah, both are completely different languages. So these three bits and pieces are forms the basics of CSS and JavaScript. And then comes the frameworks. So nowadays, what happens, like various frameworks have been introduced in the market quite a long time back. And no developer actually codes using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Although for getting started, you need to have basic idea of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You need to start some practices with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But in the long run, in the big companies, or any product is not actually made using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Rather, they have start utilizing the frameworks. Okay, like we have React.js, which is developed by Facebook. We have Angular, which is developed by Google, and then we have Vue.js as well. And there are all lot of other frameworks as well. Okay, so what is basically a framework? Framework is basically, you can consider like it comes with a ready-made structure of all the things, all the basic things together. For example, React.js, it will come up with a HTML piece, it will come up with CSS, JavaScript, all bundled together. And you just have to code. So you just have to put your codes in the in the React.js boilerplate. Boilerplate means the project structure and all. And then finally, what it does, like it bundles up everything and it gives you the output as an HTML application. So you really do not have to individually maintain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. React.js or Angular or any of the frameworks automatically does the stuff for you. So these are the various front end languages and frameworks that you need to start learning. And then comes the backend languages and concepts. So as I said, backend means the part where you write the logic for manipulating the data, or communicating with the data from the database and all those other stuff. So the the base, the languages that you can learn is basically Node.js. Then we have Python, we have Java, but specifically the Java Spring Boot part. So there is no hard and fast rule that you have to no, for building any kind of web application or any kind of website, you have to code in Node.js only, or you have to code in Python only in the backend piece. You can use anything of your choice. You can use a mix and match also. Okay, so we have Node.js as a backend language preference. We have Python, we have Java as well, and then comes some frameworks like Flask and Django. Flask and Django actually, they are actually built with Python, so they actually they are actually used in Python languages. Okay, like for example, if you're writing the backend using Python, you can use the Flask and Django. And there are some various concepts. So while you code, or while you develop the application, the backend application, there are few concepts that you need to ensure that you have quite knowledge on those concepts. For example, the first comes the RESTful architecture, and we have this get, post, put, and delete. So let me tell you in brief, like what is RESTful architecture. So for basically, you have written the code in backend. Now you want the front end to access that the data, right? So RESTful architecture means any backend. So whenever you develop a backend application, you provide an endpoint. Okay, endpoint means like it will be a form of a URL kind of a thing, which you actually use in your front end application to consume the. You can just hit the URL in your browser also, and it will show you the all the the data in let's say object and array formats. Okay, if you're not quite sure about that. So and then you can you can apply some sort of object oriented language, object oriented concepts in your front end part, to to actually settle the data, and actually to showcase the data in your charts and all. So this is actually basically the RESTful architecture. Like get means getting the data from the database, and let's say you are developing a registration form, and you are entering all the details of the the applicant, let's say, and you want to store them in the database. Then comes the part of the post, where you take the data, chunk of the data, you give it to the backend, and then the backend uses those data, and it will send the data back to the database to do some insertion in the tables in the database. So there comes the post. We have put for doing any kind of update of any data. Then we have delete for deleting the data. We have other concepts also, for example, the microservices architecture. So in a typical full stack web application, there is not like there is not one piece of front end or one piece of back end. There are mix and matches of various micro sites, what we say, or various small applications. In front end also, we have a concept called micro front end. Means we have bits and pieces of each applications, and those are all interconnected together to form a total combined one singular website. Similarly, in the backend also, we can split our backend services into various small micro services. For example, let's say if I if I give you the example of an e-commerce website. Okay, we can split the backend logic into various small parts. For example, for handling the orders, we can have a microservices known as orders. We For handling the the profits, we can have a separate microservice. For handling all the products, okay, all the I mean maintaining the products, we can have a separate microservice. So we can build a mix and match of all small similar services to to interconnect with each other, and that is called the microservices architecture. And then we have the authentication and authorization management piece as well. So for example, let's say you know so you have developed the entire application, but you do not want anyone to use that application. Like for example, if you take the example of Amazon only. Okay, so in order to place an order, okay, or in order to maintain any order, you need to have a login ID. You need to have an Amazon ID, okay, through which you log into the application, and then only you can manage the order. You can delete, buy, or purchase anything. Okay, so that not any like, it's not nothing like none any other person should log into your account and do the place the orders and cancel the orders for you. So there comes the authentication and authorization management. So we write several services in the backend. Okay, we utilize various methods in the backend, in order to handle the authentication, whether the correct user has logged in or not, whether and after logging in, whether the user has is having the permissions to to access some areas or some pieces of the websites or not. So all this part comes under the authentication and authorization management part. So in order to capture in order to learn the entire backend concepts, so you need to have all these things in your mind, and you need to ensure that you start learning all this stuff as per the backend backend stuff. And then we have the databases, like as I said. So the final thing is the database, means like we are persisting the customer data where we normally persist the customer data. So let's say we have thousands of customers, or we have 200 500 customers. Okay, and we need to put those data, or even from a product perspective also, we need to store the product details somewhere, right? So that part is known as the database. And now there we have two kinds of databases. One comes the the relational database, and there are various relational databases available in the market. The most commonly and widely used is MySQL, and then we have Postgres SQL, we have Microsoft SQL Server as well. So these are the examples of relational databases wherein you maintain your data in tabular format. Let's say you have specific tables. So you have one table for handling the products, you have one table for handling the sales, then for the profits and other, and you are having mapping, relational interconnection between all those tables, relational mapping. Like the product table should be mapped with some other table. Okay, and there should be a index which will help you to map and connect with both between the tables and all. So that kind of system is known as relational. So we normally call it as RDBMS, means relational database management system. And these are the examples, these are the relational databases that you can see. And then we have non-relational databases as well. For example, we so there are some databases where you do not have to store the data in Tableau format. You can store the data in some kind of document formats also. Let's say there are various documents or various like you are storing the data in some site. So let's say some sort of array formats or some sort of objects formats. So there comes the non-relational databases, and the examples are MongoDB, we have Cassandra, we have Redis is known as the in-memory cache. Let's say uh, every time I do not want to hit the main database, I want to get the so let's say my application is reloading after every 5 seconds. So after every 5 seconds I do not want to hit the database anytime every time, because the data is normally not changing over a longer period of time. Let's say the data changes very rarely, let's say once in 2 months, like that. Okay, so in those cases we do not need to hit the databases, rather we can have a Redis cache or in memory cache in between. Okay, wherein we can persist the data temporarily and we can get the data from there to show it in our front end. So it will help us to boost up the performance of the application. The application will definitely behave relatively faster as compared to as compared to the to the scenario where we directly fetch the data from the database every time. So these are the examples of the databases. And then comes the cloud, means so you have developed the entire bits and pieces, you have developed the front end, you have developed the back end, and you're maintaining the database also. Now you want the public to access your website, right? You want others also to access your website. So how do you make it publicly available? For that purpose, we have various cloud services available in the market. The you know the most widely and the famous, the commonly used cloud services are these three that you can see in the screen. That are Amazon Web Services, AWS. We have Microsoft Azure, and then we have Google Cloud Platform, which is offered by Google. So these clouds they have several concepts within themselves. Like for example, the infrastructure as a service, wherein you maintain the infrastructure, you maintain the server, you only maintain the server. you only maintain the storage and this the other stuffs and all. So you have the full control for your for the infrastructure. Then comes the platform as a service, means you just deploy the application, and there is an example called Cloud Foundry, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, wherein you just deploy your application and that's it, and the entire thing will be handled by that service. Okay, and then we have another category known as the application as a service or a software as a service. Let's say there is a there is a this thing there is a ready-made website, let's say a machine learning studio. Okay, wherein you want to upload some data and do some sort of analysis, some sort of regression analysis, or any kind of analysis on the data. Okay, and you do not want to install the software in your local laptop. Let's say you want to access it via the web. Okay, so there are various applications available in the web, in the cloud. So which will or we can, in short, we can call them as web based software. Okay, so it will come up with a URL, and then you can just hit the URL and you can access the portal and you can do the analysis, all those over there, without even installing the software in your local system. So that becomes the part of the software as a service or an application as a service. So coming back to the cloud part, so yeah, so these are all the bits and pieces of the cloud, and we finally deploy all our full stack and all our the front and back end and all bits and pieces in finally in the cloud, like AWS or Azure or GCP. So now if I show you the final bits and pieces. So yeah, so final skills breakdown. If I break down the skills like this, so a full stack development typically consists, typically he or she should be having all these skills, more or less all the skills you should be having the knowledge about, like in the front end, the basics, that are the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then the frameworks like React or Vue or Angular, and then there are some styles also. For example, SASS, then Material, then Bootstrap. Okay, so these are part of CSS only, but these are you can also consider it as newly framework for specifically only for the styling part, only for the CSS part. So this forms the part of the front end. Next comes the backend, wherein you can learn the concepts of PHP, then Node.js, then Java Spring Boot, then Python, Ruby on Rails, or ASP.NET. Then we have databases like like RDBMS system, like MySQL, Postgres, then or NoSQL system, where you do not have to write any SQL. So SQL is another language. The full form is structured query language. We normally use it with relational databases, wherein we write some query or write some 2 3 lines of code to fetch the data, or to communicate with the data in the database side. Okay, so so NoSQL means you do not have to write any SQL query for that. You can directly use that using some JavaScript objects and all. So that is the part of Mongo. So the examples are Mongo, then Redis or Cassandra. Is anyone having any question? I think someone was trying to speak.
Souvik, there's one question from Pramod Mote.
Sure.
He wants to ask C or C++, front end or back end. I guess he's trying to ask is C++ used in front end or back end?
So C plus plus is you can use it in the in the backend, because in front end, so we are talking about the website, mainly the website or any application wherein you are building the user interface. So you normally do not use the C plus plus for front end part. You can use C plus plus, but for the backend, for developing the backend logic.
Pramod, I think your question got answered. Yes. We can move ahead, Souvik.
Sure, thank you. So now, and yeah, so we have graph kind of database. We have queues also. Let's say, so the examples are Apache Kafka or SQS or RabbitMQ. So what are queues? So mainly, for example, let's say I have a series of process that I want to execute. Okay, one after the another. So we can keep those process in the queues, And and there are various concepts that you need to learn in terms of queues. For example, FIFO means first input first output. Okay. So queue normally follows the FIFO methodology. And so it is also used as part of the full stack development. Then we have DevOps part, which normally consists the cloud part also, like the infrastructure, like AWS, GCP, and Azure. Or you can also run an on-premise means you can host your application in any kind of non-cloud server also, like in the engine server and all. Then we have automation part. Let's say you do not want to manually deploy the application or push the application in the cloud. Let's say not only pushing, let's say after you develop the application, you need to run some testing also of the application, like some sort of test cases where whether some bits and pieces of the code is running correctly or not. Okay. But normally you have to do every time manually. Every time you have to develop the code, and after developing you have to do the testing part. Then again you have to push the code into the cloud. So there are some tools available in the market like Jenkins and Ansible. And also let's say the Azure DevOps. Okay. So this will help you to create some process, some pipelines or some processes. We call it as CI/CD pipelines, wherein you configure the process. You tell the system that, hey, I have developed the application, and after the developing the application, I will just run one single script, and the entire testing and the hosting of the application, deploying of the application should be handled by you. I'll not be doing that. Okay, so that becomes the part of the automation. And then we have virtualization concept like Docker, Kubernetes. And in some of the for some of the products, like for example Netflix itself, okay, or Hotstar itself, or any other apps that we are using in our mobile smartphone as well. So you also might need to develop the mobile piece for that application as well. Okay. And it should be a native mobile app. Like you should not be opening the browser and typing the URL of the website and opening the application. There should be a native mobile app which you should be able to download it from the Google Play Store, or iOS, for the iOS Apple Store. So for that we have some methodology, or from some techniques that you need to learn for them for developing the mobile apps. Like for example Java, for developing Android apps you need to have Java, Java knowledge with you. And then we have for iOS we need Objective C or Swift. And let's say there is another uh, framework known as React Native, which is part of actually React. Okay. And we can use React Native to develop, or PWA, like progressive web apps, to develop cross platform application. Like for example, I do not want to code in Java, I do not want to code in Objective C, I do not want to learn this Java, Objective C, all those stuff. I want to code in normal in using simple HTML and Java, simple HTML and JSX, or XML format. And that itself should develop my mobile app as well, along with the website. Okay. So there comes the React Native, where you can simply create mobile apps using HTML and JSX, means JavaScript, XML, the language as well. Okay. So this entire things, okay, this comes under the full stack developer skill sets. Okay, so the tools and IDs normally that the full stack developers we use is basically Visual Studio Code. You can use any ID. IDE means editor, basically where you write your code. You can use any editor of your choice, but the widely and the most commonly used is basically the Visual Studio Code. It's an open source code editor available in the internet. You can download it and you can start using it. And we have Atom, we have Sublime Text, we have other editors also available, like for example Notepad plus plus. And there are a lot of other editors also available in the internet, so you can use any one of those to start coding. So no as part of like the beginning stage, You can start up, you can start practicing by building some basic websites, for example a portfolio website, for example. So you normally, when you apply for any company, for any for any role, particular role, what do? You normally build up a CV in in PDF or Word document format, and then you submit that. Okay. Additionally, let's say if you also can give a portfolio website, means let's say you build a website. Okay, you deploy it into the cloud, and in that website you have given let's say some profile picture. Okay, and some little bit your name, the career objective, then some little bit details about the technical skills that and also some glimpse of the projects that you have worked on. Okay, so the entire things you have developed as a website, and it should be, let's say, appealing, really appealing to the recruiters, to the interviewers. Like you have put up some animations on the website, you have put up some graphics on the websites. Okay, so that your profile gets shortlisted by the look and feel that you have, you are letting them to enjoy while viewing your portfolio. So that category is known as portfolio website. You can also start with some e-commerce website, for example. Let's say any, like you are like you can try to clone the Amazon or Flipkart or Mintra, any kind of similar look and feel of the website, and you can start developing that. Okay, you can also develop the backend for the same. You can also maintain the data. Let's say some dummy products you're maintaining in the database, so you can also do those stuff. Then you can create a dashboard application, let's say a single page, or let's say on a multiple pages, like 2 3 pages, and all the dashboards contain some charts, let's say 4 to 5 charts. And there are some chart libraries available in the in the internet, like high charts. We have am charts. Okay, we have other like other plotly, we have d3js. So you can use those chart libraries to develop the charts in the dashboard, to, let's say, to to fetch the data from the from the database through the backend. And you need to perform some analysis through the help of some graphical analysis through the help of some charts. You can use those. Okay, you can create the dashboard. So this is another category. You can also create like a social networking website, like for example a similar Facebook kind of a website, or an Instagram kind of a website, wherein you have the profile section. You can create another section for handling the photos, the videos. Okay, and another section for putting some posts and comments and all. You can also have a chat section wherein have the list of all the online members available currently, and you can initiate some chat with them. So this is another. So you do not have to work in the entire backend part of it. At least you can start creating the front end interface for the social networking website. You can also create a blogs website, like we have Blogspot. Okay, we have medium.com. It's another very interesting and very useful website for writing down articles and all. So these are the various categories of website that you can start with, and you can create some personal projects of your own to build up your portfolio. So I'll start with the website.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the Visual Studio Code editor. Okay, that you, as I said, you can find it in the internet. It's an open source editor that you can install, and it's very helpful. It comes up with some like plugins, some extensions. Let's say you want to enable. You can also install some of the extensions. Let's say you are creating. Let's say you are developing the code, and you forgot to maintain the indentation of the code. Like, as part of best practices, it is always recommended that you maintain the indentation. Means when you write the code, like the bits and the chunk of the code that you are writing within braces, let's say, it should be, you should give 2 tabs or 1 tab, so that it really looks like it's the part of a function. Okay, so this indentation, if you forget, there are extensions available through Visual Studio Code, which will automatically format your code. Okay, and there are other lot of extensions available in Visual Studio Code also. So these options are there. Then we have an integrated terminal. Let's say I have written a Node.js code, and I do not want to open command prompt or another separate terminal to run my file. It comes with an integrated terminal. I can just click on new terminal, and it will the terminal will come up here, will pop up here, and I can simply run my command here itself without even opening any other additional window. Okay, and it comes up with the folder structure here. So here is the folder structure, and let's say I start creating an HTML file. So I'll create the first HTML file. I'll name it as, let's say, index.html. Okay. So in a typical HTML application, so you normally start with HTML tag, then you have head. Okay, and you can write the title tag. Let's say my first application. Then we have a body tag. Body is the main part where you write all the parts over there. Let's say this is body. Okay, and let's say so this is the HTML, simple HTML, 2 3 lines of code that I've just created now. And let's say I want to run it, so I can just simply go to this folder structure and I can double click on this and it will run. Additionally, there is another extension that is available in Visual Studio known as Live Server. So if you can go to extension part over here, and you can, if you just search for Live Server and click on install, it will install the Live Server. And when you come back to the code, you just right click on the file and open with Live Server. Select open with Live Server. See, so this is the first part. So, and I have written this is body. So this is the HTML application. And let's say I want to do some sort of styling. Okay, let's say so there are some let's say some tags available in HTML. So when you start learning HTML, you will notice. So there are, let's say, div. There is tag called div. Okay, and let's say I want to name it as header. I am applying some class. Okay, and this is basically the CSS class. Okay, and I am writing this is header. Then I am creating another div class. Let's say class, let's say main body. This is body. Then div class. I can create a footer as well. This is footer. Okay. Now, now the styling is not proper. I mean, the header should come at the top, the body should come in the middle, and the footer should come in the bottom. Okay. So for that, I will develop a CSS file for it. Okay. So in the same folder structure, I will create a CSS file. Let's say plus and style.css. I'm naming it as style.css. Okay. And I can call it like this: link rel equal to href style.css. Okay, and this classes I have to maintain it in here. Dot header like this. What are the other classes? Main, body, and footer. So dot main body footer. And let's say I want to, first and foremost, I want to give the background as green. Timer for how long? So as you can see here, the background color has come. Okay. So similarly, I want to, let's say I want to give the background of main body as yellow. Okay. And the for the footer, I want to give it as blue. Let's say not the blue, let's say the aqua, this one. Okay, like this. So Now we have uh, we have put the background color. Now let's say I want to, I want to make this center aligned. The text should come in the center. So I can go to my css code over here. Over here I can I can type another property, let's say text align. Okay, and I will give the value as center. See, it has come to the center. Similarly, I will do the same for all the other things as well. So all the three text has come up to the center. Now I want this header to remain at the top, but the footer should come to the bottom. Okay. So let me while writing the code for this, let me also show you another approach that we can use. We can right click and go to inspect. It will open the developer console for you. Okay, and we can do a preview of our code in here to see to have a live no live we can do a live preview over here. Okay, in the elements tab. So this is the footer component. So we can click it and we can write it over here. Let's say I am writing, let's say position relative bottom 0 pixel, or let's say not relative, it should be fixed. So as you can see, the footer has come up here. Okay, and I want to give the width as 100%. So width is now 100%. I want to increase the height little bit. Let's say height is, let's say, 2 rem. Rem is another unit for, in like we can use instead of pixel. We can also use pixel as well. Let's say I'm increasing it to a little bit more. Let's say 4 rem or 5 rem. Okay. So what I can do, I can quickly copy this part. I can go to my style sheet. Let me paste it here. Yeah. And format document. Yeah. Okay, similarly I can do the similar things for this one as well, the body and the header. So I'll go to elements tab again. I will select this icon. I will select the header. Here also I can do the same thing. Position, let's say fixed, top 0, width 100%. And here also I want to give the, let's say, the height as 5 rem. Okay, now I have done that. Now I am unable to see the body part. Okay, so I'll select body over here. So the body is actually getting covered by the header. So I have to give a, let's say, a margin to the top. So there is another property known as margin top. Okay, and let's say, so the header's height I have given as 5 rem. So I will give it as 5 rem. Now comes the body. Now I'll give the height as, let's say, 100% so that it fills up the entire rest of the area. I'll just select this. I'll go to my code. I'll paste it here. Okay, so done. So this is the part. So this is the front end part. So we have the header, we have the body, we have the footer. So yeah, so like this we can do the styling using HTML, the HTML part. You can design the structure and all, and you can also do some sort of logic stuff using the JavaScript. So let me create a button. Let's say I have a let me create a button in here, uh, in the header itself. So I want to create the button in the next line, so I'll give a br tag, and then I'm creating a button. Okay, and the type I'm giving it as, let's say, submit. I'm giving the name of the button as click me. Okay, let me check. So yeah, here I'm having the button. Okay, now I want to I want to perform some analysis, and some, let's say I want to perform some mathematical operation, and I will show it. I want to show it on the screen. Okay, so for that I need to write JavaScript. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'll create a function over here on click equal to calculate. Okay, and I am passing, let's say, 5 comma 3. So now I have to define this function in some JavaScript. So I will create another file known as, let's say, logic.js. Okay, and here I'll create the calculate function. So the old traditional way of creating a function is like this: function, like this, function calculate. Or I can also create this in ES6 format. Let's say I can create in this way, like an arrow function. It is known as arrow function in this pattern. Okay. Now I am passing 5 comma 3. So I have so a comma b is my argument. Okay, and I want to alert. I want to bring a pop up. Okay, while clicking on that bottom, and it should give me the sum. Okay, so a alert. I need to, for example, yeah, a plus b, it should give me the output. Okay, now so in order to call this function, I need to link this JavaScript with the HTML, right? So I will go inside my head tag. I will come in here, script src in source, and I will give the this thing, my JavaScript files location. Okay, and the type should be JavaScript. So whenever import any JavaScript, external JavaScript file within your HTML application, you should mention text slash JavaScript. So I was just giving JavaScript. So I can now pass 5 comma 3 over here, and here I can come back to a plus b. Okay, and if I load this, yeah, if I click, yeah, so see, it comes up with the, it gives me an alert with the result 8. Okay, so this is how you do the coding in JavaScript. You write the logic in JavaScript. So whenever I click on the click me button, this function gets called, the calculate function gets called, and it shows up the result 8. So if I go back to the code, see, on so there is a property called, there is an event called on click, and then we are calling the function, we are passing the values over here. This function is getting called from the JavaScript file in here. I'm getting the values from the argument, and I'm returning the summation result of it. Any questions from anyone? So there's a question from Surbi, I guess. I want to ask, I'm new to code and writing logic. I find difficulties. So can you advise how to improve? Yeah. So like Pratibha mentioned, so EduBreeze is having a full stack development course. Okay. and you can register yourself for that course. And you can get the like entire top to bottom, or everything, like the details, like how to improve your JavaScript coding and all, logic writing skills and all. Okay, that will definitely get brushed up in there. Additionally, I can recommend you, so there are no there is a website, open source website known as W3 Schools. You can go ahead with that also. And you can learn the JavaScript part over there. And as a friendly advice, I'll tell you, see, logic or coding is not difficult. Okay, I'm not saying this because I'm having 7 years of experience, but I am saying this, as a third person view. It all depends upon how you brush up, how you think. So it's all mathematics, nothing else. Okay, for example, function. When you want to reuse a functionality, okay, when you want to like there is a, let's say, a calculation that you need to do on click of button, on this, on that. Okay, so you can write a function for that, and you can just call that function. Then array, concepts of array. So array is a, is a thing which consists series of elements. Okay, and you, if you want to index, or if you want to access a particular element from that array, you can use the index. Then there are for loop. Okay, so like logic is very like logic making should be easy if you properly follow the basics without jumping to the higher level. I mean, for example, let me give you a very basic example. You do not know much of coding, but you are directly starting with React.js, so do not do that. So better you learn the JavaScript part first. You learn the object oriented programming's basics. Okay, what are the various key concepts of object oriented programming, how the bits and pieces work, how, what is an array, what is an object, okay, what are classes, how do these things work. Well, all right, you first try to learn those. Once you are clear with the logical ability, then you can start with the next stage, like then you can start building the web page, then React or whatsoever you think. Okay, another question from Ramya. What in case if we get input from user, how to get input from user, right? So there is an HTML tag, okay, that you can use, like in the web page, like you, for example, form, okay, and you can, there is an HTML tag called input itself. Inside the form you can write input, wherein the user can type in the input. And let's say there is a submit button, okay, and on click on that submit button, there is a method called document.getElement. These are called DOM methods. Okay, document object model. So using DOM method, you can get the input. For example, you have given an ID to the input tag. Let's say user input. So you can just simply type document.getElement by ID. Then in the bracket you can pass user input, and then dot value. So then you can get the value from the user. Did I answer your question? All right.
What are the important concepts in JavaScript for website building?
Yeah, so as I said, JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language. So important concept should be, you should be able to learn the, like, functions. Okay, first of all functions, then comes the arrays, then comes the loop, like the for loop. There is another loop known as for each loop, and there are some important ES6 methods known as map. Okay, known as set and all those stuff. So yeah, you should be first of all know the object oriented programming concepts properly. Then JavaScript will be a piece of cake for you.
I hope your question is answered, Anantwali.
Yeah, I got an answer. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.